Welcome to the iHemp Hour. My name is Dave Crable. I'm with iHemp Michigan. Our mission is to educate, inform, and promote the cultivation and development of industrial hemp. And I'd like to welcome our team back together. I know we're not here on a regular basis. We're going to try and do this every couple of weeks. Mike Brennan, hello. How are you, sir?
Doing great. Thanks for asking.
And we're joined with Blaine Bechtold. So, Blaine, you want to do the honors? We have some really cool news to talk about today.
We do. This is going to be a great show, that's for sure. And then about halfway through the show, we're going to have Danette Dean's going to join us with Mule CBD. They were one of the winners of one of the Happy Awards for their Mule Extract CBD, and CBDN gummies. And I know my wife can make a very good testimony on those. She loves those. So it's going to be a great show today, and it's my pleasure to introduce our guest for today, which is Henry Gage. He is the new president of the U.S. Hemp Building Association, but I'm sure he's not. He's been there for quite a while, so it's not like he's new to the whole thing. And we're going to talk about what's happened this last week with some codes being approved for that, and also talk about they're going to be at the Chicago Build, which is October next week, 13th and 14th at the McCormick Place, and you can get free tickets to that. So if you go to chicagobuildexpo.com/USHBA, you can get some free tickets and come out and join them and learn about a lot of stuff out there, especially the hemp build. So, Henry, let's introduce you for president of the U.S. Hemp Building Association.
Sure. Thank you for having me as your guest today. I'm honored to be here and looking forward to the conversation. I live in a hemp house. It turns out that we started this project in 2019. We had no idea COVID was on the horizon. So we managed to get through building a hemp house in upstate New York during COVID when everything was shutting down. It was an amazing experience. A lot of stories from that alone.
That's cool.
Well, that's awesome. So we'll talk a little bit more about that. We have another thing I'm going to talk about. Jesse, for those of you that have been following the story with Jesse D. Decker, I've got a little update that I'm going to give. We're looking at building a hemp house project here in Michigan for her, and actually another friend of hers that has the same disease that she has, so immune deficiency disease. So, well, that's great. So, Henry, it's always interesting to hear how people got involved in industrial hemp in the first place and their story. So what's your story? How did you get involved with all this?
That's a really good question. The way I got involved is I was senior project manager for Jersey City Anti-Violence Coalition Movement. And at the time, we were organizing what are called unity walks. And the idea was looking for ways to bring the community together to solve community problems. Because there's a history where if the government gets too involved, the police get too involved, people who are far away from the problem get involved, they usually don't really have answers. They have things they do that can actually break things. So one of the things I said to our executive director, Pamela Johnson, I said, you know what? So this is the end of Unity Walk. I said, we have got to get into economics. We've got to get into the green economy. We want to be on the first train, not on the last. We want to help bring this to the community so that they know and things can improve. That was the catalyst. So at the time, I was actually working in Manhattan. This was like 2019. My background is technical engineering. I write algorithms, so I tend to get jobs with like companies like Morgan Stanley to figure out their tax law accounting system, basically heart-lung transplant. That's a different story. What that caused me to do.
So you're a brainiac, in other words, right? Is what you're saying?
Thank you. It's a lot of fun. I like solving puzzles. So this was an amazing puzzle. Sally, my lady, she's also my right-hand person with this whole adventure. She's a naturopath. So when I heard a mention of a person dealing with an autoimmune disease, she gets it. She talks with people who are injured by mold, and she has stories that she can share about what people experience being in the hemp house. So remind me when we get to that and we can expand upon it. So back to the main thread, what I did is I got on the road and I started touring upstate New York looking for a property that was reasonably priced for the test, because the thought was we have to figure it out. No one knows for the most part. We were saying we were going to do a retrofit because we didn't believe in the idea of building a brand new $1 million house at this stage. We needed to figure out how to create a solution that could be applied in regular communities, regular people We're talking farm communities all over the United States. That was our model. So with that said, we used a cast solution that we learned from Cameron. So Cameron was it turns out we were his first customer also. So we met him through the association. He came down from PA, and we decided to hold a community class over at Seedsong Farm. The farm manager there is Creek. And we basically educated the community, then came to this property and went through a demonstration of how to mix, how to set up a form, how to put the material in the wall, considerations on safety, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then we kind of celebrated, and we came back the next day and took the form out and said, ta-da, here's our first wall segment.
Give a little background, Cameron. You mentioned Cameron, but some people may not know who he is. So
I would say Cameron is the national leader in spray applied because he's among a group of people who decided to continue going with the technology. Now, keep in mind, there are a lot of different people involved with this, and they're going in different directions, right? Solving problems. So on his thread, I'm on like a, political legislation, trying to move some big things into position that supports like all of us. I'm saying all of us. Now, with what he did is he realized that there was a more efficient way, because if you've done the installation, it's a lot of work, right? So we did this whole house, 2 stories, 1 wall segment at a time. So you're talking about cutting a lot of forms, putting things in place, filling, walk through the house with buckets. There's some people who couldn't handle the work. We had to, find different people who were ready to actually put in a good day's work. It took us about 3.5 to 4 weeks to finish the walls, the exterior walls. Cameron decided to continue on that path. He helped others with cast in place, but then he discovered the spray applied system, and he decided to go all in on that. So that basically involves what they call a lance, a compressor, mixer, and you basically, instead of having to carry the materials to the target, you can stand there and spray it on, right? There's a cleanup process and a reuse process, but basically it's at least 60% faster.
Now, Henry, on your house, on your project, you had to pull off all the siding and anything on the exterior and the interior to the stud?
Good question. For a house like this, a balloon frame construction, some of these designs have interdependencies in terms of what role the siding plays. Now, when you open up an old house like this, you have no idea what you're going to find, right? And that's what surprised us as we got into it, because we wanted to do volumetric calculations to figure out how much material we should buy. But if you look at a wall and you think, oh, let's see, 16 inches on center, calculate this, and then multiply it by that. Okay, here's the number. Nope, wrong. You open the wall, right? You knock the plaster off. It's like, okay, we have lath. Oh, that's right. Take the lath off. This is new. So you we decided to save everything, which is a whole nother story, and it's absolutely amazing. So the house is from the 1850s, right? So we popped the lath off, and so now you got an open stud bay. In some walls, you're talking about timbers in there that are just round, practically, right? Talking about pieces that look like they came off of a ship, right? In the bathroom, there's some notched sections where you could tell it was designed for a tongue scenario. Incredibly strong, but part of the framing. On the outside of the wall, you could see some old cedar that could be 2 inches thick by 8 or 10 inches. I'm talking massive, powerful, strong, high quality wood. So looking at that, the idea is that don't touch it, just leave it alone. So with that said, we opened it from the inside, we looked at what we had, and we realized, this is engineering, it's an experiment. And we figured, what, lime is a bit of a desiccant. If we put that on top of the wood, it's going to tend to dehydrate it in general. There's going to be a calcification process in general. It seems as though it'll make it stronger over time. That was the whole theory. Now, somebody has to do it, right? You do your best reading, talk to everybody, and then you take the risk. Talk to your building department, see what's going on. Because some are afraid that you put wet material in the wall, and the wall is going to melt, right? It's like, oh, my God, you got wet material in the wall, it's going to fall. No. Some of you have been in construction, if you've got a strong building, you can basically take out a corner, and it's not going to fall over. You need a bulldozer to take out another corner. It still may not fall because of just the way it's tied together. With that confidence, we just went one segment at a time, put the material in the wall, and finished.
So you work from the inside.
Yes, we did all from the inside. Now, there's some new considerations we have, now that we've experienced, because the idea was I wanted to live in it and see what's going on. Because see, a challenge with building a house for someone else and then leaving is that you don't get a chance to see your work. And it's like an art project. You don't get a chance to see your work and figure out what's going on. In this case, we took some of it slow. Like here, I'll show you an example. I think I can stretch the camera here. Now, see, on this window, let me take this lamp out of the way. It might fall later, but ignore it. So on this wall right here, right, what you'll see are what I call day pour lines. And so that's the new knowledge, which is one day we may have finished here, then the next day we poured the next segment that fits in here. Now, of course, knowing more about it, I would have tamped it a little better along this edge. But then again, I'm not doing all the tamping. People are helping. So then you have a challenge, checking up on everyone. That wall, you'll see some day pour lines, but it's secure and it's stable. One of the ideas to increase stability is there are support members that we put inside the wall. The other thing we looked at was like with windows, for example, like with this window, what you're seeing right here is an experiment that I'm running right here on thermodynamics to see how to capture heat. Now, what we learned is that we kept the old windows. We didn't just want to throw them away. And so the idea that you're seeing here is, how do you keep the room warmer when you've got single pane glass? Well, guess what? We went to the big box hardware store and we bought a piece of acrylic and cut it to size and fit it in place just to see if it would work. Just put it up with masking tape. Guess what? The results were immediate. It was absolutely amazing. The results occurred immediately. So there's learning that happens along the way also.
How big was this house that you remodeled? How big was it? Approximately?
1,700 square feet.
Yeah, 2 stories. Yeah. So are you still, because you didn't take out the outside, are you still getting the benefits of the water permeation?
Sure. Let's talk about that and what that tends to mean. What we chose to do is to leave the siding in place, because in old houses there are multiple layers of siding at times. So, for example, in this house, there is on the back of the house, there are the massive timbers that are actually diagonal, right? On the side of the house, it's another type of cedar shingle that's horizontal. And then in parts of the house in the front, there's metal siding that's put on top of that. So a couple layers in the front. So what decided to do is, once we opened the stud bays, you could see the outside wall. And so the idea was, well, let's see. The house isn't huge in terms of the room, so that we didn't go into the room too far. We went with 2 types of insulation. First, we put in rock wool, because that was going to get us at least an 8R value immediately by just putting the rock wool in against the exterior wall up against the siding. And then we put the material on top of that to finish the wall. So that gave it a pretty nice finish.
Okay. So rock wall, and then you put the hempcrete against that?
Yes.
Okay. The hemp line.
So how thick is that wall? I mean, is it a 3-inch wall, 6-inch wall that you have there now? You showed us?
Sure. So what we did is there's like 6 inches of hempcrete on the wall, on top of the 4 inches of rock wool, so 10 inches.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
Now, with all that extra weight from the hempcrete, did that pose any structural issues for you?
No, it didn't pose any structural issues. I think the main load is when it's wet, but then as it's drying out, it gets much lighter. And so once the material's dried out, it's reasonably light. The other thing that's interesting is, and this is something I want to get in the lab and test with the university, is I argue that hempcrete actually strengthens the wall assembly. And the reason is, like, if you can imagine, a typical wall assembly. For example, you've got, 2x4s in the wall, or 2x6s, whatever the stud members are. So let's say you have a force coming down from an upper level applied to the studs. Now, the failure mode of a stud is a deflection, typically. So, for example, if there is massive pressure, it's going to start bowing, right, until it gets to a point where it cracks and fails. Now, what's interesting is that if you imagine the scenario where that entire volume is filled with a solid, which is the case of Hemp Creek, there's no place for the stud to go. So in other words, the stud is trapped. So I think within our group, it would be great if we figured out how to collectively sponsor a load test. Now, to keep in mind, everybody's really moving fast. Like, I'll tell you about some other things later in this call that are extremely high level. So I haven't had a chance to circle back around and get more data, because I'm the certification director also. And I was honored to continue with some of the work that the team had already started and present at Code Council. That's another story. But the point is that it's going to be helpful to get engineering data to show the difference in strength of the wall assembly by adding hemp lime.
Well, let's talk about that certification. I imagine you had to talk to you pulled permits and you talked to your building inspector. That had to be an interesting conversation.
It was. So the way that went is I thought it's good to inform people, because in that way, it kind of arrests the negative and fear-based speculation. So based on that, I said to Sally, I said, you know what? I'm going to gather some information, put together a short report, gather a few videos, put it all in an email so the links are hot. They can click and look and go meet the director of the building department. And they were incredibly helpful, because what I recognize, because I have a background in QA also, so I respect safety and building science. And I think what happened is we formed a relationship where he understood that this is my house. You can do what you want with your house. Now, if you're building for someone else, it's a bit of a different risk, but it's my house. So if I get it wrong and it fails, that's my fault, right? They can try to help you stay safe from yourself. But if you have a pretty good theory, they're willing to let you test your theory, because that's part of freedom. So gave a good presentation, basically positioned it as insulation, non-structural, just insulation. And we went forward and we updated them from time to time. What was interesting is that when I first had them come and look at the house, there were plenty of other problems to look at. Like, for example, the people who had tried working on this before, that team, I was looking in the downstairs middle room. There were a couple joists that were below the bathroom. They had basically notched out the bottom 4 inches of a 6-inch joist so that they could run a pipe. And I saw that, I thought, have you lost your mind? See, that's the kind of work that some people do.
Mm-hmm.
So I saw that, I thought, you know what? I'm going to sister joist a number of these over here. And I basically taped off the bathroom and said, no one go in here. So the first thing on a job site like this, you tour the whole property and you tape off areas. Like, don't go in the basement, don't go in this room. And then you got to watch people who you work with, because they make mistakes. And you go put in a support and you tell people to leave it alone. Then you see that some knucklehead moved it out of the way so they could put a bag under the stairs. It's like, do you realize that by you taking that support out, the stairs could fail in a scenario you haven't imagined? And so the scenario is, of course, later you have like a water heater being moved upstairs from a basement, 4 people plus a water heater. How much does that weigh?
Mm-hmm.
See, people don't think about stuff like that, and they make ignorant decisions without checking with the supervisor. So I had to fire the guy.
So let's talk about, so the Hemp Creek got approved for residential construction. So what does that mean in the large picture for everybody?
It means basically, it brings to mind a statement I made toward the very end of the presentations. And I basically shared with the council that hemp lime, your approval, well, let me back up a step, because here's a precondition that's important to recognize. There's over $1 billion of lawsuits associated with damp, mold in buildings right now. They said that from the dais. And I thought, I'm going to add that. We'd already gone over our notes and stuff, but I thought that's a good one, so I retyped some of mine. And I said that, then I added that we need new solutions. And of course, it's logical as an engineer, for new solutions, you need new materials and processes. Approval of hemp lime provides a new material and moves hemp lime from the cottage industry into the mainstream. That was the main part of my argument. Now, keep in mind, we had a wonderful panel of proponents that I would say it's worth looking at. The pictures on the USHBA website. We have people from all over the world that participated in our presentation. And what happened is each person had a chance to talk for 2 minutes and share their part. Now, here's a funny side story. So we were, you can't make this stuff up, right? Now, a couple of days before, I'm just sitting there watching, listening to what's going on. A guy had come up there to talk about why they should reduce the spacing between buildings to allow for their vinyl siding. Now, nothing against vinyl, there's a place for it. But the concern was fire code, right? And so when that conversation, the question came up, he said, well, the reason it's not an issue is because when the vinyl catches fire, it pools and it falls off the building into a pool. That was the argument. He actually said that. And I thought, you know what, that's pretty brave to say something like that. Denied, right? And so that was before us. I saw that happen. I thought, okay, people try things and they get denied if you're too far off. Mm-hmm. Now, just before we spoke, some consultants were there to present a straw bale. Right. Now, for whatever reason, there's someone from the concrete industry there who wanted to argue about the aggregate. Now, the gist of the argument was that based on the combination of the aggregate, it's going to affect how dirt burns. You know, that's kind of how I interpret it. It's like, wait a second, guy, before you're saying you can't find the report, then you come back a minute later, you say you found the report, and now you're saying they haven't detailed the aggregate, and that's the reason it should be. So they didn't get approved at that moment because of those arguments. So sometimes you have people that disagree with you. So now the stage is set. I'm thinking, I can't believe this. They just said they're concerned if dirt burns. Like, okay. So our consultants come back to our area and we're looking at each other. It's like, we got this because we had been rehearsing. Each of us had our parts. So we're heading down to the front and you got to imagine the scene. Everyone else had like one person basically. We come down 10 deep in formation, almost like, you know, we all, and as we were rounding the corner, the moderator looked at us and he said, 2 minutes. And I don't want to hear any duplication. And everyone's like, okay.
No problem.
Right. It's like, oh my goodness, they don't like us. But no, he's just being fair because from their standpoint, it's Saturday. They've been there all week listening to a lot of conversation. They're ready to go home. And now it's us. And so it was absolutely beautiful. Everyone hit their points. Boom, boom, boom. No duplication. And then Sally came before me, and she's a lovely person with a charming British accent. So she talked about hemp lime, and she gave it a real human side, right? So people could kind of understand that there, as a naturopath, there are people suffering from mold, right? Mold injury. And so what she said is that this material, she's seen people come to the house. She has a friend who's an expert naturopath out of New York. She stayed at the house and she said, you know what? I haven't felt any symptoms. We've had so many people say that. In this house, I haven't felt any symptoms. The reason is that because the VOCs are so low because of the materials that we've used in the house that you don't have to deal with that as part of your breath. Because if you smell it, it means it's in you, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So that
I'm very sensitive to mold. I can pick up mold smell very easy. Yeah.
There you go. So you know. So she spoke, and then I gave my part, and we got the thumbs up. So, so that thumbs up was basically approved to go forward into the public hearing segment. So it was an epic win. But of course, as soon as that happened, it's like, let's get out of here. You know, head to the exit.
Getting right again's good. I'll just read a couple paragraphs here so everybody understands what this kind of means. And you help me if I need to fill in more. But hempcrete was approved for the Model U.S. Residential Building Code during a hearing last week, overseen by the International Code Council (ICC). The material was approved as an appendix for the 2024 International Residential Code, the IRC, which governs U.S. residential building codes for 49 out of the 50 states. The new code, set to be published formally in 2023, will feature hemp lime, hempcrete, under Appendix BA. Specifically, hempcrete was approved as a non-structural wall infill system similar to cob and straw bale construction. The approval applies to 1- and 2-family dwellings and townhouses and should increase the ability of hemp-based building material and facilitate greener construction projects around the U.S. So yeah. I don't know if that hits a good nail on it. But that's what I thought that was a good succinct of it. What happened? So
Yeah, I'll add an interesting aside. So when I came on board at the beginning of the year as certification director and was gearing up to go to code council, I was saying to the team, it's like, wait a second, this says single story. I just finished a 2-story house. So are we saying mine isn't approved? It's like, what are we going to do? You know, that was my start point, right? So now we've got a little tension in the team, right? Now we talked it through. Jake, to his credit, he helped organize the proponents and he'd been working on it for a while. So I came in toward the end phase as we were organizing our presentations and getting ready to go. But what I agreed with the team is I saw the wisdom of, you know what? I see your strategy and I agree with it. I am going to support what is written, the way it's written. Here are my suggestions. And just made a couple of suggestions on the side here and there, just like everyone else did, but supported it as written. The theory being that you need to really get started with something. And given these cycles, about 3-year cycles, it's better to be where we are in terms of going forward, because we can always improve it and we have time to get more scientific data. And so we basically agreed go with the single story approach. But of course, you always have the engineered approach that has variances based on data.
I've got some specific questions. I'll talk maybe after the show a little bit. I purchasing a house that has a garage, and I want to insulate the walls in it. But we'll talk about that a little later, because I talked to Kim Crows, who's here in Michigan, and she's had a project she's done here. And so I'm interested in trying to do that in the garage. So I'll figure how that works. So let's see, Dave, we're at about the mid part of the hour here. Mike, you want to give us some good news you got from your side?
Okay, let me get this. I wasn't sure when we were going to do this, so hang on. All right, so there's an event coming up next week in Lansing called the Michigan Canna Harvest Fest, and it's an effort by cannabis activist Latricia Matson to get the whole industry together, because it's October, right? So Croptober. And so it's right there in Lansing at the Capitol. The governor may speak. And as we all know, Dana Nessel, the attorney general, is pro-cannabis. So she's a maybe as well. But what she's trying to do is bring all the players together in October. Hopefully the weather will support it. And there's going to be, it's a non-consumption event, but there'll be a lot of exhibitors there from dispensaries and growers and cultivators and, processors and whatnot. And they're expecting several thousand people, and just kind of a community kind of a thing. That's a lot, because a lot of these people are in silos where they don't typically meet each other. So she's trying to get everybody to meet together. So obviously there'll be some opportunity for you guys at the Hemp, iHemp, whether you want to come out, and I'm just going to show up and shoot some video and whatnot, and press the flesh and do all the things that I typically do. So that'd be a good event for you, Dave and Blaine, to maybe stop by the Capitol there, and it starts at noon, runs till 5. There are also a couple things on as you know, the tribal authorities are outside of what the CRA, the Cannabis Regulatory Agency, enforces. They're separate entities. There's a pair of bills that just passed the Michigan House, very overwhelmingly, 102-6, to continue to let them be sovereign entities and go ahead and sell adult use cannabis from their various tribal locations. I don't think part of that bill I don't think they'd be under the auspices of the CRA, but they'd have to work with the state somewhat. And the bill removes the 10% excise tax on marijuana, because right now, as you know, you got that tax plus another 6% for various cities and counties and whatnot. 16% tax really drives up the price of the basket. So they're trying to give them all the breaks that they can. This still has to go to the Senate, has to be approved. But possibility that seems, with the overwhelming support in the House, I'd be surprised if it doesn't go through. So those are the two main things. Just come on out to Lansing next week, Tuesday, actually, and just meet a lot of folks in the industry that you probably wouldn't meet otherwise, and celebrate the harvest, because all the outdoor harvest is coming in. Just what we need already when the prices are so depressed, right? There's going to be even more depression on the prices, but a lot of these dispensaries, they've been buying their products from cultivators that grow indoors, which have much higher costs than the outdoor cultivators do. So they're kind of excited because I think they're going to get their pounds of weed at a lot cheaper price, because right now hardly anybody's making any money in the dispensaries in Michigan, because we're racing to the bottom right now. And with some of the multi-state operators coming in, we got way too much supply. And even though the demand is really strong and up about 30 or 40% from a year ago, prices have really crashed. So the people that are actually doing the work, building, the industry, are the ones that are just barely, if at all, making a living right now. So it'll be an interesting time over the next 6 months. We're predicting that there'll be a big shakeout. Lots of folks will go out of business. Lots of folks will get acquired. Wait and see, right? We don't know exactly, but it's darn it. So thought I turned that off. So anyway, we come out on the 11th, meet a lot of interesting folks, and I would encourage the iHemp folks to join us as well.
All right, and that's Tuesday at the Capitol.
Tuesday at the Capitol, starting at noon, runs till 5. And there's going to be a lot of people there. There's going to be a lot of exhibitors there, a lot of booths. And so if you haven't had a chance to see some of these people, you're going to be able to meet them in the flesh now.
Can I get a booth to sell my Frisbees?
I don't know. I can connect you with Trish, and she. I think she's still got some available. If you want me to make that connection, I will do so. I had her on my show last week, where she talked all about what was going on, and she did say at that time there were some booths available. I just don't know if there still are.
Yeah, let me know.
Okay.
Awesome. All right. Well, let's. I think Danette, she can certainly brighten up and make our panel look pretty. I think if she's available, let's talk about Mule. If she's available, Danette, you there?
Gotta love live shows, huh?
We love live shows. Absolutely, we do.
I don't know.
Oh, here we go. Okay.
Sorry, guys, I'm not on video today. I apologize for that. Most of you have seen me anyway, so.
Well, here I thought you'd make us look all really good today while doing that. That's fine.
Next time. Maybe next time we'll do that. So obviously I've met most of you already. So I've known Blaine for a while through a couple of different companies, and now he's kind of hooked in with my husband a little bit. So yeah, this will be fun. So I am with Mule CBD. We are an Oregon-based CBD manufacturing company. I, however, live in Michigan. I run the sales department. Just so happens that I can do that from anywhere, which is a real bonus. So a little bit, though, about Mule, and then I'll highlight for a few seconds some of the products that won some Hemp awards, which was pretty exciting for us. Basically, our philosophy, being family owned and operated in the state of Oregon, is we want people to really understand how CBD and other cannabinoids can help them and what type of CBD to use. Because there's a million products out there, a million brands, as we all know. We're really committed to putting care and effort into making and testing our products. Number one priority is product testing. Our mission is really to stay true to the earth, true to the flower, and we want to really be true to our customers. So we want to raise awareness about CBD, all the natural health benefits that go along with it. Really pretty much from your average, stay-at-home mom to your professional athlete. CBD is a big buzzword right now. So two of the products that I presented at the iHemp that won awards, actually my cherry chamomile gummies won best food product, which was pretty exciting. And what we do,
yummy.
I'm sorry.
They said they're very yummy.
They are very yummy. Mm-hmm. I do agree with that. So it's a combination of CBD and CBN. And cannabinol, which is what is CBN, a non-intoxicating kind of derivative that happens when THC ages, has really been, a lot of attention has been brought to it recently because of its benefits for sleep and relaxation, among other things. So what we did is we took an already pretty robust cherry chamomile flavored gummy and supercharged it with CBN. And that produces a really nice product to allow you to wind down at the end of the day, get a good night's sleep if that's what you're looking for, as well as some other good, real nice benefits to using CBN. So we're starting to do a lot more work with some of the minor cannabinoids to kind of pump our CBD products up. We recently added a lemon CBG or CBD CBG product to our lineup. And, a lot of you people out there already know this. CBG is kind of more G for go, and CBN is more N for night. And what I've found and what's brought a lot of attention to CBG recently is interest in the benefits of focus and energy. So we kind of have both opposite areas of the spectrum, and we combine that with a really nice lemon flavor. So Blaine, Becky would probably like these two, just sort of I have a hard time not wanting to eat the whole box because they just they did such a great job of there is really zero hempiness aftertaste. So it's really, really pretty cool product that we're pretty excited about.
All right. Well, is that available on the website then? People can order that?
It sure is.
Well, then you might want to give that website address then.
Yep. So Danette, if anybody wanted to get the Mule products, how would the best way to do that?
It's www.mulecbd.com.
That's pretty simple.
Yep. And then do I have another minute and talk about the muscle rub for a sec? Okay.
Yep.
Perfect. So the other product that won us a nice little award at the Hempies was our muscle rub. And we won third place in kind of the topical cosmetics category. I competed with some wrinkle creams, so I didn't really have much of a chance when it came to that. I think those were pretty popular. But so basically we took our muscle rub is a non-greasy, fast-absorbing gel that's used basically to soothe sore muscles and aids in easing some targeted pain. We've also added camphor, menthol, and I'm getting my companies mixed up here, and aloe. And by adding those ingredients in with the CBD, there's a lot of other nice benefit along with, I use it for sunburns. I've used it on bug bites, other minor skin irritations. Arnica is always great for bruising. So really, this is kind of a multi-use primary benefit, targeted pain relief, muscles, joints, those types of things. It has a really nice cooling effect. So that along with, feeling, okay, I feel it's working. It smells really good because I really like the smell of menthol. So it might clear your sinuses. So lots of other really fun benefits. And, we were lucky to get to present those products at the iHemp Expo.
All right. Well, Danette, thank you very much for taking some time out today and updating us on the Mule and what's going on there and your great products. And again, if people want to get that, that's at Mule CBD. There we go. 2020 Hempy Award winners. Yay.
Of course, we have that right on our website. And we always offer, there's always a product discount code that is, we never unactivate it. That does not sound right. But anyways, it's Mule 15. So MULE 15, and you get 15% off your product purchase with that.
Awesome.
And Henry, you are fascinating to listen to. So it's really cool to listen to all the things that you've got going on. So super fun.
All right. Well, thanks, Danette. And we will talk to you later. I'm going to have to order some of the CBG then, because I can always use a little more energy. That's for sure.
Well, you have a connection. I can always ship you a few samples.
I'm interested. Put me on that list.
You got it. No, honestly, I'd be happy. Yeah, you guys share your addresses with me and I'll get some samples out to you.
I'll type it in the chat right now.
Perfect. All right. Thank you so much for having me.
All right. Thanks, Annette.
Thanks,
Tell Greg we said hi.
I sure will.
All right. All right. Well, Henry, let's get back to you and all the great stuff we got there. So,
sure.
So are you going to be attending then the Chicago build? Will you be there yourself or not?
We will have members there, and here's part of what's going on. And maybe before the call wraps up, if we could touch on maybe a way forward that I think could help all of us if we could allow a little time for that. So
Sure.
basically, what we're doing is we're preparing to scale up. Because we've been focused on getting some details in place, like this code council win. And we know on the horizon, we want to go after commercial code. So commercial code, we're figuring that's going to start in 2023. So we figure we need to at least focus on consolidation this year. Take the win that we have and make sure we run the lap so that everyone knows and focus on state issues. So here's what that means for the rest of the year from my standpoint for Q4. So we're in Q4 now, and the intent is to, at the beginning of the year, I described something as a moon landing mission. So in other words, I say it that way because I think all the people on this call remember when America decided we were going to the moon and we're actually on our way and we landed. Because I remember being in a park when that happened. Yes, I'm in my 60s. I remember being in a park, people were standing around portable televisions watching. It was a whole national thing. We're on one accord. Now, of course, now we've got a lot of confusion going on. You got a billion channels, all this kind of stuff, internet, YouTube. If you talk to a young person, there's no telling what they were watching last night. Same thing with another adult. So what we figure is that let's get some focus, border to border, coast to coast, on this opportunity that's in front of us associated with hemp. So to accomplish that, what we're doing is we're focusing on our regional leaders. So we have, 10 regional leaders, and the idea is really develop networking through them. Because if you think about it, it's impossible for central office to travel the whole United States and answer every question. It's an impossibility. But what can scale is us focusing on what are the systems that we can put in place in order to deliver the service through our existing model. So how is that going to look? So I'll take New York, for example. So Alex Escher is the lead for our region. He's a regional leader. And so what I do is he also joined. He was one of the presenters at Code Council. So really got to know him and got to know his father. His father's an architect, Bob Escher. And so the basic idea is we talk and think about, well, what are some of the things we can do to expand our region? So a couple of steps involved. Let's make sure we're reaching out to the states in our region and identifying at least one person, encourage them to join USHBA because that's going to be an efficient way of communicating, plus raising the money we need in order to support the deliveries that we're providing. And then what the idea is to layer on top of that a next objective, which is basically, since we just got Code Council, let's deliver to them the information they need within state to talk to the building departments. So for example, here in New York, I've just had this spiritual timing with situations. Like 3 days ago, when I was leaving the building department, just to say hello and keep the relationship warm to the director and let them know we have an event and let them know we're going to plan education. Who ends up parking next to me? A red Jeep. It's the fire chief, right? I can't believe this. He parked right next to my car. So here are the two of them standing there, and then I walk up and I have my T-shirt on, and I say hello. I introduce myself, so I was in attire, I had my uniform on. Wonderful conversation. I told them what we're up to. They're ready to burn stuff and see what happens. And then I told them about another person they probably know, the fire chief in Jersey City, because I was there to support the Unity Walk early in the year and to talk to that fire chief. And we stood there in the park looking across at a couple buildings, and he said, I remember before when some of these buildings were burned, it's nothing like you get today. Today, you get all these toxic fumes and smoke and heat, and it's terrible. And I thought, you know what? I hadn't even thought about it from their point of view. They go into these buildings that are now filled with these toxic gases from petrochemicals that are burning. No one's talking about that and the effect it's having on people. So I said that hemp lime is fire resistant. And it really got his attention because he's thinking, you know what? He wanted to look at it. So what we basically did is had a tentative agreement where I'm going to reach out to him once, build a relationship here in Kingston, and we're going to set up maybe a team burn, right? So I think the idea would be to build a small structure, one with regular insulation and one with hemp lime. But the thing is, I'd like to get the max value out of it. So, and here's the challenge. I keep finding myself on a cutting edge of doing really good work. And the saying is like, when you're on the cutting edge, make sure to stay behind the blade. right? Now, a problem is that you might be behind the blade, but you're still reaching in your pocket and paying for stuff. It's like, wait a second, this is going to benefit the whole nation. Why do I have to pay for this, right? And so the challenge is, how do you get the money from your state to sponsor the work, and how do you justify the work? So that's what you'll see us focusing on. You'll have projects like Matt Marina's in North Dakota. He has set up a test scenario where they're building 2 houses. So to justify it to investors, it's basically going to need to be used as an Airbnb, because that justifies it to the investor. One is going to be with hemp lime, the other is with regular insulation. But within the walls, put in monitoring systems to monitor humidity, temperature, and other things. And so you can imagine that that's going to be some valuable data that can be logged over time. So the intent is, how do we move some of that forward by getting grants? So what Alex and I will be focusing on in this region is getting some of that money. Now, I'll go a little deeper in that lane. To help us, like I have some friends who have said they'd like to be involved with a mill. Like one of them had indicated he's ready to help with a mill. But early in the year, I said, no, not yet. It's too complicated. I wouldn't start, because the legislation and because legislator, the best intentions, it's good they're in silos, because you can see the nonsense going on in Washington, D.C. If we weren't in silos, oh my God, I have no idea where we'd be, right? No idea. So since it is in silos, the side effect is that we live in a democracy. And that was the epiphany of a call I had like a month ago, where we had someone from the commissioner's office, basically, and someone from the legislative team. And what they basically acknowledge is that, we have this problem. On your side, you set up roundtables, and it has certain limits. That person's job is to listen. He'll say to the community, people like me and the professors and other people who have businesses, I'm here to listen. But then the legislative person says, I follow the wishes of my constituents. So you see the puzzle. So what happened is, I clearly identified that about a month ago. And I was sitting on the call, because what happened is the guy in work with Mark Privatera, we had put together what we thought was going to be the winner this time, because we're thinking, where's the urgency? So we talked on the side and said, okay, what we're going to do, we're going to ask for $20 million. We're going to do affordable green housing. It's going to deal with some of this, and this, because it's going to create demand. And we're going to, it's like, yeah, I think we got presentation, then crickets. And it's like, excuse me, I have a question. I'm trying to understand, what is the process for making a decision within the group? I'm a project manager. So let me just ask, how do I get you to yes? And so when they said those 2 things that I just mentioned, it's like, oh, we live in a democracy, so what you want is consensus. Both of them said yes at the same time. So once that happened, it's like, okay, I get it. We have to work together and come together and say, we represent the people of New York, and this is what we want. Now, fortunately, I'm really good at collaborating, so I've had to do it my whole career. So I was able to leverage those skills, and basically agree we're going to have a series of meetings and come together. Now, don't get me wrong, we're arguing, but it's a different kind of argument. It's an argument that's like, no, you can't just take and run off with the baton. No, we're supposed to be doing it together. More like that, because professors want to say, we are going to have the single decorticator and drive it around the state and help solve the problem. And I'm thinking, no, we're not going to do that. That's not working. You're going to leave the community people out, et cetera, et cetera. We will work it out. So at the end of the day, the idea is that they're listening, and they're looking for directions from people. So people have to organize themselves, work through the consensus issues, because it's not possible for politicians to do that. That's not their job. It's not possible for them to say, I'm just going to spend. That's not their job either. So our job is basically to say, we have to listen in our local community, then reach over to the other community, figure out who's doing the same thing there. Because you know what? You can't go over. Here's what I learned in Jersey. So I love young people, right? This might surprise you. There's a young man I'm working with. You'll hear his name later, because I think he's going to be a hero in the future. Jonathan Hickson. He's currently incarcerated, right? A whole baloney story. And he's my mentee. He's going to be coming out in April, but he's so eager to get trained so he can come home and fix grandma's porch. Now, when you look at a block scenario, I would say something like, to get to work, we want to just get on the bus and blah, blah, blah. I'm thinking, oh, gee, you don't understand. I said, well, what do you mean? I can't do that. You don't know who's going to get on the bus. Oh, my God. some communities are so broken, you're always looking over your shoulder because of what we've done to young people, right? Now, seeing that, they have to go point to point because that's safer. So part of it is you have to know the communities that you're dealing with. So if you imagine a state, there are all these different communities. You can't just get in your car and drop off a flyer and say, everyone meet us here. They will step on your flyer and walk right past you. However, if you know someone and you build a relationship, it's a whole new ball game. So I think that's our challenge, is building relationships, and then through the relationships coming to consensus. Now, on top of the consensus, there are people like Erica Stark and the team she's working with. And I had a chance to be with her in Hershey, PA, where we were one of just a few people who were there for the group of 10 commissioners were having a meeting. So we were 10 commissioners of ag and markets. She presented hemp exemption. So what I'm suggesting is, how do we get hemp exemption to every state so the commissioners know what to do?
So Henry, we're kind of closing in on the hour here. So what can people do to help USHBA, move forward, donate? How do people help where they want to help with you?
Go to the website, USHBA.org is a start point, USHBA.org. And then from that website, join at the highest membership possible and get involved locally. It starts with that, build relationships. Now, you'll find a place there. Some people will navigate toward marketing. There are things we can help with there. For example, if you can imagine, now is the time for us to build teams, reach out to construction companies and makers of products to figure out how can we help them be successful. Also, keep in mind, we're an association that wants to make money. So my goal as president is to create this share model so that if we create an educational package and you want to use it in your state, here, just, you need to be fair because you're using someone else's legacy content. So share a percentage.
Well, we'll definitely want to be talking to you about that, because one of the things that iHemp Michigan wants to do this fall and winter is we want to host some meetings like we did when we first started with the industrial hemp for the building community.
Yeah.
Architects.
Yeah, we've been talking with Cody Lay.
Yeah.
Yes, we want to do that. That's why we're going to be at the build event, because we're kind of switching over. It's like, you know what? We need to go to the building events and show up there. Now, to do it in each state, people look to people making building products. And you say, if Milwaukee is around the corner from you, call them. Let's figure out what we can do, because they can help make some of these products. They have manufacturing, etc.
Mm-hmm. Well, Henry, we're definitely going to have you back on again, because there's a lot of things we know there's a lot of things we didn't cover today that we need to get to, and we will do this in the near future for sure, because this is where one of the big areas we know that is going to move the industrial hemp community forward is going to be in the building material. It's just.
And do you realize that hemp could be the product that puts a strong brake on climate change? Believe it or not, it could be the number one for that.
Yeah, there's a couple of good projects that got approved in that smart climate commodity stuff, and so it'll be interesting to see how that all comes through. So, well, Henry, thank you very much. Any last words you'd like to give us before we kind of close up the show and do our little recipe?
I think we're good. Do you want me to stick around? You said you had a question.
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind waiting after the show a little bit, because I got some specific questions when talking to Kim about how we're going to utilize the spray in my project that I want to do. So,
sure, I'll stick around and listen. And thanks for having me. Really enjoyed talking with everyone, and we'll talk again soon and keep moving this market forward.
Sounds great. Thank you, Henry.
Thanks, Henry, and congratulations on you being appointed that.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Dave. You got something?
No, that was Henry. Yep.
Okay.
He was showing us something.
All right. Well, Mike, thank you very much for your joining and being part of our team. We always enjoy hearing from what we can see. Everybody says the dark side. And all right, I'll say it again. Go blue. Mm-hmm. Just once. I'm only going to say that.
Must be hard for you to say.
It is. It's really hard for me to say. But you guys are doing well this year. The big thing that I'm excited about, right, is basketball starts real soon. So
yeah, absolutely.
That's what I'm excited about.
I think they can actually warm up on November 1st or something, right? Is that when they can get together and officially start practicing and all that?
Yeah, they've already had a few events at MSU. Izzo does a Midnight Madness thing. They have a camp out and everything. And
Maybe it's
so I think the
October
first,
1st. Maybe I got that wrong. So
yeah, I think the first game is November 7th, exhibition game. And then why they do this on this particular day, I do not know. But the game they always do every year with Kentucky and with Duke and North Carolina, the championship game. Oh, it's just going to be on November 15th, right?
oh,
Why they do that on
first
opening
day of
day
hunting season. Huh?
Yeah, well, for gun
Well, you
season.
just can't go hunting that day, Blaine. I'm sorry.
Yeah, right. Okay. Yeah. Well, you never know. But yeah, so some good news. I kind of home front people that are following me. We're going to be going back to the home office here pretty soon. I'm going to be able to move my brother back up to Grand Haven with me there. So we'll be broadcasting there maybe the next time. I don't know. We'll see. So
Okay.
Dave, anything you want to throw in for the good cause?
No, sir.
All right. Well, let's get it on there. Here we go. So, it's the fall season right now. Like you said, Mike said, this is our last day of kind of the 70-degree warm weather. So, we're getting into that. So, pumpkin spice hemp heart oatmeal is what we're going to talk about today. This oatmeal without any oatmeal gets a day started. So this only takes about 35 minutes to make. It's got about 575 calories for those that are watching for that. This low-carb oatmeal recipe uses nutrient-dense and keto-approved hemp hearts cooked in coconut milk with pumpkin spices. And if you don't know where to get hemp hearts, shameless plug here, you can go to downonthefarm.biz, and I'll be happy to send some hemp hearts out to you for sure. The ingredients is half a cup of hemp hearts, 3/4 cup of water, 3/4 cup of unsweetened almond milk or cow's milk. And you can also make hemp milk if you want for that. A tiny pinch of salt, a half a teaspoon of cinnamon, a half a teaspoon each of ground cloves, nutmeg, ginger, and allspice and cameron, 1 to 2 tablespoons of monk fruit for sweetener, and 2 tablespoons of full-fat coconut milk or cream. So you add the water and the milk to a small pot along with the salt and spices and a teaspoon of monk fruit and bring it to a boil. Add the hemp hearts and reduce to a simmer and cook for 35 minutes, stirring often. Check for seasoning after 5 minutes. You may want to add more monk fruit or pumpkin spice. After 35 minutes, the hemp hearts should be thick and creamy. Mix well and remove from the heat. And step 4, enjoy the hemp heart oatmeal with some chopped pecans, unsweetened coconut flakes, or even some unsweetened cocoa powder to make it a chocolate pumpkin spice. You can find this recipe and more recipes on the iHempMichigan.com website under the recipes. And that's today's yummy recipe. So,
okay.
All right. So I want to thank everybody for joining. Thanks, Henry, for being on, and Jeanette, thanks for giving us an update on the mule. And I will be sending you my address because I'd sure like to try some of the GI. With everything I got going on in my life, a little extra energy doesn't hurt. That's for sure. So, and we'll see everybody in a couple weeks.
All right. Thanks.
Take care.
Thanks, everybody.